Hey, this is Sasha. Thanks for joining me in today's video. And what I want to share with you today is really why you shouldn't use a debit card for any purchase whatsoever. So stay tuned. I'm going to give you some thoughts and insight behind this. All right, so that's right. You really shouldn't be using a debit card for any purchase whatsoever. Now, before we get going, I do want to give you some thoughts to check out our website, MyLittleNestEgg.com, where you could download some great freebies to get yourself started making money on the side, mindsets of the super rich, passive income ideas, and other great stuff. Now, to kick this video off, I do want to let you know that my personal recommendation is to go ahead and use credit cards if you know how to use credit cards responsibly. I know that it's maybe a little bit of against the rules to what some personal financial advisors would tell you. And that is because what's going on and what's happening is that most people don't know how to use credit cards responsibly. If you go ahead and use credit cards and you pay them off right away, there's no issues with using credit cards because you're never going to pay anything to use them. And in fact, you might actually get cash back, rewards points, and a lot of other perks by just using the credit cards. But a lot of people, the problem is they have habits, spending habits, compulsive habits to buy things and really are into this consumerism world where they buy anything they need and want and please just to be able to go ahead and be socially accepted by other people. So in other words, they go ahead and use credit cards irresponsibly. And if you're doing this, yeah, you're going to rack up a lot of debt. But ultimately, when you look at debit cards and credit cards are just a lot safer to use. So let's kind of take a look at this breakdown and check it out. When we look at a debit card, let's understand the way that it works is really when you go ahead and make a purchase, it goes from your bank and it goes directly to you, right? To where you're using that credit card or that debit card, such as a gas station. So that's all great and fine and dandy. But now what happens is some people at those gas stations, they can skim your debit card. And now they could go ahead and withdraw money. They could go ahead and use it in other places and you have that liability. Whereas with credit cards, what's interesting is you have the power to use it, but you're not necessarily liable for the use of it, but you are liable for the charges. So the way that this works is, hey, I've got the power to use the credit card. Then what happens is it goes through kind of like a merchant gateway. So this is really what this is. It's kind of like a barrier. So what happens is it first kind of locks things in and it bears you or kind of confines you before it gets to you. Now, yes, you do eventually get that bill in the mail when you do use that credit card, but initially it has to go through that merchant. It has to go through that gateway for it to really hit you. And with the credit cards, what's interesting is that you are protected because you have this extra layer or step that the transaction is going through. So in other words, when we look at debit cards versus credit cards, is really debit cards have a higher risk for fraud or to fraud. And that's really one of the biggest issues because if someone gets a hold of that debit card, they could go ahead and withdraw things in the ATM. They could go ahead and just use it to spend things. And it's really just kind of like cash in a way. And that's really what makes it risky, right? If you find $5 on the floor and nobody's around, who's going to claim it? So that's the big issue there. Now, yes, sometimes you could go fight with the bank and maybe they may be able to catch someone, but ultimately it's really tough. But when you look at credit cards, there's some laws in place where you are not responsible for unauthorized charges under federal law if your card is stolen. So for example, if a charge is over $50 and your card is stolen, you're probably not going to be liable for it. And they can just put a stop on that credit card and ship you out a new one. So credit card has a barrier for fraud and protection. And not to mention, you get credit card points and rewards for using them. So how cool is that? So let's say maybe you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of 10 years using your credit card. Well, maybe every year you get $500 or $1,500 cash back for just using the card. Now, I don't know how much you spend on your credit card. I don't know your reward system. I don't know the point system. I don't know what your credit rating is. But ultimately, depending on a lot of factors, if you're just spending on average, a couple $1,000s every single month on your credit card, you may be able to get, 1% back, 2% back, 3% back on your purchases. And with that, time and time again, that starts to add up. And certain store cards give you even 5% back on store purchases. So what happens is you end up saving money at that same store location. So when you really go and boil it down, that can really save you a lot of money if you use credit cards responsibly. Of course, if you're racking up debt and you got a 29% interest rate charge, then yeah, it's not going to work out for you. But if you pay off your credit card debt every single time, 100% of the time, every single month, then really you get the perks of using the card without the liabilities, without the problems. So when we really look at it, is the debit cards have much more liabilities and much more problems. Now, when would you really use a debit card? Well, use a debit card when you need to take cash out. That's really the big thing that you want to keep a debit card around. And in this case, that's a good point to use a debit card is, hey, if you need some cash, you need to go to, let's say, a farmer's market where they only take cash, then a debit card might be important. And in other words, most of the time, you probably should just leave that debit card at home. In some situations, bring it along with you for those emergencies, like maybe a going out on the weekend thing. But if you're just doing your daily routine, if you're going to your work on a day-to-day basis, you don't always need a debit card. And if you're running low on cash, you might want to go ahead and bring that debit card along. But otherwise, stay clear of it because of that higher fraud. And not to mention, you don't get the perks. Of course, some people, they do like the debit card because then they can see the transaction and think of it more like cash. But remember, you still don't physically see the cash coming out because once you spend $1, it's gone. It's out. Once you spend $1 on your debit card, you still got the card. Maybe it comes out of your account, but you still have the card. So it's still not the same way. If you're trying to build good habits of spending, then just go ahead and leave it in cash. Have a bunch of cash around, get rid of the debit card, and that way you're not kind of trying to compulsively use it and thinking like there's still money in your account. Anyways, I hope these tips gave you some thoughts and insights to really making smarter decisions with your money. Go ahead and check out our website at MyLittleNestEgg.com. There's some great freebies there to download, PDFs, cheat sheets, and some passive income ideas. And if you're brand new to the channel, remember to subscribe so you get other great content here in the future, or join that newsletter list so you get notified as we release some live events or new PDFs, new cheat sheets, and new ways to make money. Thanks again, and I will see you next time.